What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and in this video today we're going to be doing the Halo 2 retrospective and giving you my raw and honest thoughts about Halo 2. So with all that in mind, let's go ahead and get right into this retrospective. So this video is going to have two main sections. Those are going to be the campaign and then the multiplayer. We're going to go ahead and start with the campaign first and give you my honest thoughts about the campaign and how it performs and holds up today and compared to some of the other games that we've gone over. Halo 2 for me is a really special game in my heart because it is actually the first Halo game I'd actually ever gotten. Now, I was pretty brain dead and could barely play through the game just because I was like maybe 4 at the time and didn't really understand how to play games that well. So it may have been my first game, but it wasn't really the first game I'd gotten, deep into with the story and things like that. But as compared to the last playthrough that I've played through, I'm still very impressed with how the story and gameplay holds up today. Halo 2 was a big step in the right direction from Halo Combat Evolved, adding things like the chain gun turret, dual wielding, which is still one of the coolest things in Halo. It's such a disappointment that we don't have it back. They added the iconic energy sword to actually be played with, and then they also added a few other guns like the fuel red gun, and added a bunch of new vehicles like the Spectre, the Scarab, and so much more stuff that they added to the sandbox. And honestly, the improvements from Halo Combat Evolved are so noticeable, especially in the gameplay. I enjoy going through and playing Halo 2's campaign so much more than Halo Combat Evolved's. It feels a lot more fleshed out and a lot more fun to play. And there's also so much more interesting encounters that you experience through the game. Halo Combat Evolved didn't have any boss fights or boss levels, but Halo 2 added boss fights and a boss level where you fight the Scarab and take down the Scarab, which is still one of the most iconic moments from the campaign. Then you have a traditional sort of boss fight like with the Heretic, Tartarus, and then you also beat the Prophet of Regretta, but I don't even really think we can count that as a boss fight, but to each their own. But there are so many innovations that happened within Halo 2 that make the game so much more enjoyable to play rather than playing Halo Combat Evolved. And I know I'm going to be doing that a lot throughout this video, saying that Halo Combat Evolved is such a step down from Halo 2, but I could go back and play Halo 2's campaign through right now and not get anywhere near as bored as I would while playing Halo Combat Evolved. And honestly, I get it, Halo Combat Evolved was the first game, but Halo 2 really made Halo a Halo game in my opinion. So Halo 2 has 13 missions, and I think the mission variety is pretty good. There's a lot of different and interesting encounters. The only thing I will give Combat Evolved a little bit more credit for is their levels were a little more open-ended in the ways you approach gunfights, and Halo 2 definitely ended up being a little more linear, but this was more so due to the limitations of the traditional Xbox. So as much as I want to give it a lot more negative points for that, it's not like the worst I've ever played, and I'd rather play this over Combat Evolved still, so take that as it is. And then the last part of the campaign is going to be the story, and Halo 2's story absolutely knocks it out of the park. It's definitely that perfect rising action to the third game, which it would have been Halo 3. The only disappointing part about Halo 2 is the cliffhanger ending, and if I was somebody growing up in 2005 when this game came out and actually was able to understand the story, I would have been so bummed out to get left on a cliffhanger like that and then have to wait all the way till Halo 3. Other than that, I really can't critique the story that much. The characters are amazing, and this is definitely one of the best Halo stories in terms of a narrative and character-driven story. The Master Chief and Arbiter dynamic was so fun when we got that. Miranda Keyes and Sergeant Johnson were really great standout side characters, along with the Shipmaster for Arbiter, and honestly, I don't really have any complaints with any of the characters throughout this whole story. Tartarus was handled really well, and the Prophets were handled so well too, and they were really compelling villains, and really let me connect with the Arbiter and the Covenant as a whole, which is something that is really hard to do. Overall, the Halo 2 campaign for me is going to get an 8.5 out of 10. I think the few things that would really bring it up to that 9.5, 10 are just the game being a little outdated. If the game was updated on a new engine where you could have things like sprints and the graphics were improved a lot, I definitely think this game could be in that 9.5, 10 category. But it's personally not one of my favorite games, but I love going back and playing this game every now and then. This is a great campaign to come and play. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and get into the multiplayer aspect of this. Now, I will say I wasn't able to really experience the multiplayer as it was back in its heyday, so I can't really say anything about how it did play back in the day. But what I can say now, the multiplayer on MCC is pretty good for Halo 2. I definitely prefer the Anniversary one a little bit more just because of the improved engine and things like that, but that's just my personal taste. Now, I know a lot of people loved the button combinations, but that's something I'm not really a huge fan of in Halo games. And, as much as people loved it for competitive, I really don't think it belongs in Halo. So that is going to be a bit of a point dock for me. But let me say, Halo 2's maps are some of the best in the series. And honestly, I am so impressed with the map variety that they have. I know there's a few maps that I still haven't been able to get a true multiplayer experience on with a traditional matchmaking, but the maps that I was able to play were really great. And I really didn't have any complaints with the maps. There was maybe like one or two that I could, skip and play a different map on. But overall, some of the maps were really amazing and honestly catered so well to the Halo arena gameplay loop that they built. Now we're also going to go and talk about the weapon sandbox, and this is where I'm going to go ahead and give this game a bit of a critique. The battle rifle absolutely dominates everything, and it is because it's projectile based, but I love the battle rifle, but wow, this gun really just dominated and made it really difficult to use anything else. Like, there's really no good place for the SMGs in the meta when there's literally a battle rifle, and it feels like instead of it being more of an arena sandbox based game, it felt more of a get your battle rifle and point and shoot. And this is more of just a sandbox issue in general, and I feel like this has mostly been solved in Halo Infinite by adding AR starts for casual matches. I think BR starts are great for a competitive standpoint, but I really don't like that all of the modes were BR starts back in the day. That is one of the big issues that I really didn't enjoy about this game, and that's also an issue that we'll go into more depth in as we continue throughout this series. I also thought that the vehicle sandbox was really great in Halo 2. They added things like the Goshawk and the Spectre and things like that. As unfortunate it is that the Spectre hasn't returned, it's still one of my personal favorite vehicles just because the aesthetic was absolutely nailed for the Covenant, and I was really sold on it being a Covenant Warthog. With all that multiplayer stuff in mind, I'm going to go ahead and give the multiplayer a 6.5 out of 10. And the reason it's not a 7 is just because of those button combos. If button combos were in, I would easily give it a 7. If it wasn't dated and an older game with a few balance issues, I definitely think this is one of the best multiplayers. But those issues for me personally hold it. In conclusion, Halo 2 is a great game, and it's honestly a masterpiece in its own way. This game really made Halo Halo for me and a lot of fans across the world, and this game really pushed Halo into that competitive scene and had a great story to go along with it. Overall, I give Halo 2 a 7.5 out of 10 with the multiplayer and campaign combined, and this is a game that everybody should pick up at least once and give the multiplayer spin and also play through the campaign at least once, because both of them are great experiences to have. And honestly, if you're a Halo fan, this is something you've got to do. Anyway, if you did enjoy this video, make sure you like, subscribe, leave me a comment down below. What did you think about this retrospective? Is there anything that you would have liked to see in this video? If you do have anything, leave it down in the comments. I will make sure to read and respond to all of them. With all that in mind, stay hydrated. We'll see you in the next video. Peace out, boys.